So good afternoon. My name is Sarah Erkman-Ward. I'm the president and CEO of Blueprint Alaska and a proud sponsor of this conference as well. Honored to be the moderator today. So this is our third debate here at the AOGA conference, so I think most of you are pretty well trained, if you will, but I'm going to go over the rules of the road so everybody knows how we're going to do this. For the benefit of our candidates at our forum today, each of you will answer a variety of questions that you've already received. So the candidates have all received the same questions in advance. Like yesterday and this morning, we will have 2 rounds of yes-no questions. Please make sure you have your yes-no paddles. I think you do. We may also have a question or 2 specifically for each candidate, and I can confirm that, in fact, we will, because I have seen them. And we should be getting some questions from the audience. So, audience, you're also probably aware of how to do this at this point, but a reminder, you've all downloaded AOGA's conference app by now, and that is how you can submit your questions. So if you go into the app, there's a mechanism to submit the question. Don't be shy, because be aware, in the spirit of letting everyone be candid, those questions are anonymous, and only I see them. So I'll know you asked it, but the secret's safe with me. So please do, if you have something you want to ask of any of the candidates or all, send them up, and we'll get to them as we can. I have an iPad here that does all the wizardry. So candidates, we will have a timekeeper up front. That's Ms. Rachel Bilesma, keeping you guys on time. For the lightning round of yes-no questions, we'll ask you to use your paddles. That's pretty self-explanatory. For the remainder of the questions, you will have 45 seconds to respond to each one. You will see a green sign when you still have 30 seconds remaining, a warning yellow sign at 15 seconds, and the big red sign that tells you wrap it up. I will obviously try to keep us on time, but if you can keep it to the time limit, we would appreciate it. So audience, please do not clap during or after any responses. We want to get to all of our questions, and if we're applauding continuously, it's going to burn through time, and I think we'd rather hear the candidates talk about the issues than us applauding each other. So, to begin, we're going to have 2 minutes for each candidate to make an opening statement. Please include why you are running for this seat in your statement. Since we have 3 candidates, I obviously cannot flip a coin, so we're using the magic hat that has been used at the other debates. I confirmed each slip of paper has a different candidate's name on it. It's going into the hat. We're going to see who goes first here. I'm just randomly moving these around. Pick one. And for first will be Governor Dunleavy. Second will be Representative Guerra. So logically, then Governor Walker, you will be last. So for first up, Governor Dunleavy, please begin. Why are you running?
Well, first of all, thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Kara. Thanks, AOGA. Also, thanks to Les and Bill for being up here and being part of this forum. Basically, we want to continue what we've been able to accomplish the previous 4 years, the 4 years that have been in office, and create a vision for Alaska over the next 50 years. So what are some of the things that we've done? And when you think about what you want for a governor, you really want to look at records. What was my record for 3.5, almost 4 years? What was Les's records? What was Bill's record? And so looking at our record, for example, rape kits that were not processed for years were totally processed under our administration. It wasn't just happenstance. We made sure that those rape kits were processed. We wanted to make sure that those victims felt like the state cared and that there was justice going to be served. And we put in a process to never have that happen again in terms of backlogs. Our crime rate is down 30% under my administration with the repeal of SB 91. I inherited about an $800 million unpaid oil tax credit debt. This year we'll pay it off once and for all. We've lowered our debt and increased our state credit rating overall. We kept our economy open during the pandemic. We worked with all the industries, including the oil and gas industry, fishing industry, mining, to make sure that we didn't shut down our industries. And we worked on protocols to make sure people were safe. What was the result of that? Today, as we stand here today, Alaska has the second lowest death numbers in the country, third lowest death rate per capita in the country. And if you got the virus anywhere in this country, if you got it in Alaska, your chances of surviving, the survivability rate was #1 in the nation. And we kept our economy open. We passed the historic Education Reform Act called the READS Act. to get our state in line with other states that believe that their kids could read and will read, and this is exactly what we're going to do. We funded research in drone technology, critical minerals, heavy oil, and mariculture at the University of Alaska. We maintained a stable oil tax structure, and we've put billions of dollars in savings and achieved the biggest PFD in history, all without taxes.
All right. Thank you, Governor. Next up, Representative Guerra.
Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm so proud my wife Kelly is here. I love you, Kelly. Jessica Cook, my running mate, is here. Thank you, Jessica, for coming. As many of you know, I grew up in foster care. I lived on the run with my mother for a number of years, moved in with my father when I was 6, and within 6 months, somebody came into his office late one night in his beloved community of Harlem and killed him. And so I lived in foster care from age 6 to 18. I don't want your sympathy for that. I grew up and did well. I had a chance to succeed. I had good schools. I had a chance to go to college. I had a chance to go to law school with Michelle Obama, who never met me there. So, 1,500 person law school. I've done well, but most people in the state have their own story of harm, their own story of difficulty, not just me. And I believe everybody deserves the right to a good education. They don't have one today. I believe everybody deserves the right to a good job and a good paying job, and people are leaving the state because they do not see an economy for the future in the state. 20,000 more people have left the state in the last 4 years than have moved here. They don't see a commitment to public education, so they're taking their kids away. They don't see a future of jobs for their kids, so they're leaving. And people wonder why we don't have electricians anymore, and carpenters anymore, and professionals anymore, and laborers, and every single kind of person, because they have left. Last one here, turn out the lights. That is not the future that I want. I believe that everybody deserves opportunity in this world. That is my core belief, that you deserve opportunity, equal opportunity, whether you were born rich or poor. Look, I think this is a state where this state has made people fight over the crumbs between a PFD or schools or a university or job training or renewable energy projects, which we need. Those are not ors. We should be doing all of those things. We need a society that brings people back together instead of dividing them. This is a divided state right now. I want to put it back together. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Governor Walker.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today and to be at this forum. A couple things. I'm honored to be running with Heidi Dreiges as my running mate, and great honored to have my bride of 45 years here, Ms. Donna. You know, a few highlights when I was governor. Resource development has been a passion since I got my first dispatch in '69 from Jim Robinson and Labor's 341. I was honored to be part of the permitting process for both Willow and Pitka. I was honored to be a part of the process for the opening of ANWR. How many years and decades have we talked about that? We heard that from Senator Murkowski this morning, which is on opening of ANWR. Unfortunately, that has not continued as our administration had proposed. We've had a tremendous amount of exploration on the North Slope during our time in office. We watched Armstrong come in and sell their leases to Oil Search, now Santos. It was the first, fourth company coming into Alaska that we'd had in decades. You know, I'm running for governor, because we need to rebuild Alaska. Alaska is imploding. My goodness, look at the numbers. We have over 1,100 shortages of teachers, 1,100. For the first time in probably 35 years, there's no educational fair, job fair this year, because who wants to come? Who wants to come to Alaska and not have a retirement? 1,100 teachers short. We're short school bus drivers. People are figuring out how to get their kids to school. The lower income folks have a challenge with that because they have 2 jobs, not 2 cars. The ferries are tied up occasionally in port because there are not enough workers to operate the state ferry system. That's a first. We're 49th and 50th in the nation in our post-COVID recovery. 49th out of 50. With all the resources we have in this state, we're 49th out of 50. You know, I can't stand by and not be doing what I'm doing, knowing what I know about the pent-up opportunities this state has when we start working as Alaskans rather than Washington, D.C.-style partisan politics. I'm running as independent, I'm running as Alaskan, and I'm honored to be doing that.
Thank you. Okay, Thank you for those opening statements. So we are going to take turns going through who gets to go first, middle, and last, just so everybody knows. And if you're not submitting through the app, you are in rare company because there are lots of questions coming in. So don't be shy. I'm going to have more than I can get to here. So thank you. That's great. It's nice to see people engaged. So now we're going to head to a couple of questions that were given ahead of time. So we're just going to go alphabetically on this one, and then we'll start to rotate through who gets a turn to go first. So Governor Dunleavy, you're going to go first, followed by Representative Guerra, and then we'll finish with Governor Walker. So the first question is, and this should be familiar to all of you, the theme of AOGA's conference here today is Alaska, America's Key to Energy Independence, in case you missed it on this backdrop here. Are current policies in Juneau a deadbolt or a master key? Governor Dunleavy.
Repeat that one more time.
Sure. The theme for the AOGA's conference is Alaska is America's Key to Energy Independence. Are current policies in Juneau a deadbolt or a master key?
So the deadbolt right now is in many respects Washington. And I think the solution can be in Juneau. I think a majority of folks in Juneau want resource development, want more oil, want more gas, want less restrictions. The issue really is this new administration that is now in Washington. Prior to this administration, it was all about opportunity. Conversations with the past administration was all about opportunity. And as you can see, we had a lot of opportunity. And so with the new administration, that's problematic. But I would say that the deadbolt is in D.C., and the probability of good things happening is probably located in Juneau.
All right, thank you. All right, Representative Guerra.
In fairness, these are not the questions you handed to us.
Is it not?
We're good about it.
Well, trust me, the rest of them are, okay, well, whoops, big surprise. But hopefully we can talk oil and gas policy here relatively easily. You're all experts, so don't worry, the new ones are coming. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you. Look, I know that the best press release I can ever do is to slam the federal government. They don't understand guns. They don't understand fishing. They don't understand living in Alaska. They consider us a flyover state. I can talk about it all day and get nothing done. I'm running for governor. If I want to change federal policy, I run for Congress. I want to run to make this state a better place, right? The deadbolt in this state, on the North Slope, if that's what you're asking, is that we have allowed the major oil companies to block the independent companies in the state. Alaska is closed for business if you're an independent developer, just like we saw on the Pika field, a 200,000 barrel field. This administration allowed ConocoPhillips to delay that project by blocking the developers of that field from crossing public land to get to their lease. We need to have an open for business policy for independents. Independents know they cannot come up here without getting blocked, so often they don't bother.
Thank you. Governor Walker.
Sarah, once more on the question.
Policies in Juneau on oil and gas, is it a deadbolt locked up or master key? Things are great and very accessible.
You know, I think the way to open the Alaska's resource development is you meet with those that have the keys to the door, and those are in Washington, D.C. You know, whether that means, I recall painfully well my 15 meetings with Secretary Sally Jewell about the offshore and about Willow. See, ultimately, we got that permitted. The time I spent with President Obama on Air Force One, when he came off that flight, he said, unsolicited, he said, I will support offshore drilling in Alaska. Byron said, why? I'm surprised to hear that. He said, well, I've just learned we do it better in Alaska, and we might as well use our resources first before somebody else. You've got to meet with the people that can make the decisions. We just had President Biden here last month for 8 hours, and no one went to see him. That's a lost opportunity to educate our highest level leaders on our resource development and how well we do it.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm kind of scrambling the script around, just bear with me, guys. I know we've all received this question, so this time, Representative Guerra, we'll start with you. You have all worked with a number of individuals as commissioners over the course of your careers. Name 3 commissioners you believe have advanced policies to develop our resources for the maximum benefit of Alaska's people. 45 seconds, Representative Guerra.
Thank you. Human resources are resources. And let me point out Bill Struer, who is Commissioner of Health and Human Services under Sean Parnell. You didn't expect to hear his name, I bet. But there was once a young man named Troy who had cystic fibrosis, and the way to keep somebody alive who has cystic fibrosis at the time was to get them a lung transplant, and Alaska was was one of the few states that did not cover lung transplants under Medicaid. That was a sentence to death. So I went to Commissioner Struer. I said, this needs to change, and he changed the regulations. I worked with Charlie Cole when I was Assistant Attorney General on the Exxon Valdez oil spill. I did the civil prosecution with a team. Charlie Cole was amazing, and we successfully settled that case. Commissioner Val Davidson was a friend of mine when we worked. She helped me get through the largest foster care reform in state history. I helped her when the legislature blocked her. She helped me when the legislature was trying to block me. I consider her a very good commissioner.
Thank you. Governor Walker.
Well, I certainly can't say enough about Commissioner Val Davidson. She obviously was phenomenal in every way and everything she did. Natural resources, Andy Mack, boy, what a gift he was, and what a bright individual he is. Grew up in Soldotna. Chantal Walsh was certainly a wonderful director of oil and gas. And I struggled with the last one. I mean, I know I said three, I must say four. Last one, Charlie would be here, and I can take his. I would say that the last I would say was, I struggled with actually John Hendricks, did a great job. Joe Balash, my goodness, what position has he not had in resource development in this great state? But I went with Don Young. And I went with Don Young because I sat next to him when we testified for opening of ANWR in 2016, and what a giant of a passionate leader for Alaska he was on natural resource development.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to do our first lightning round, so please prepare your paddles. Oh, hello, Governor Dunleavy. I'm sorry, I'm like totally like, I'm like a duck here, like I'm furiously paddling underneath the surface. Go ahead, Governor.
So thank you. We've got a lot of great commissioners, and a number of them in the room today. But when it comes to resource development, obviously Corey Feige was tremendous. Ike Jalopoulos, who's taken over, is terrific as well. Jason Bruni at DEC has been terrific. Julie Sandy with our economic development has been great. We've got a tremendous number of commissioners. And you look at somebody like Adam Crum and Hess when we had to deal with this virus and all that came with it. And so I'm actually pretty proud of all of our commissioners. I think they've done a great job. And I think they've moved the state further ahead than could be expected by many.
Thank you, Governor. Sorry about that. That'll probably happen again before this is over.
Sarah, can I be the one that is the guy who asked the question that shouldn't be asked? So the yes-no problem is there's no accurate way to answer some of these questions. Yes-no.
Yeah, well, that's the format we decided on, so we're doing it. So let's move.
We can
All right.
do that. Charlie Pierce isn't here. I thought we'd have maybe 5 seconds to answer the question.
The yes-no? No, we're doing yes-no. Thank you. Okay, if you want to get your paddles ready, we're going to go ahead and go through this. And make sure that the yes-no shows, because they're not on both sides. All right, we're going to dive into ballot measures, which is our great state pastime here. Having worked on all of them, I can tell you that is accurate. So, in 2006, did you support or would you have supported ballot measure 2, the gas reserves tax? Okay, in 2012, did you support or would you have supported ballot measure 2, coastal zone management? In 2014, did you support or would you have supported ballot measure 1, the repeal of SB 21? In 2018, this is a long list. Did you support or would you have supported ballot measure 1, salmon habitat initiative? And in 2020, did you support or would you have supported ballot measure 1, another oil tax increase?
Repeat that?
It's 2020 ballot measure on oil taxes, the most recent one. There you go. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on. And so we keep getting a lot of questions on the app. Thank you. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, but it's quite a diverse list of topics. So we also have questions that we let the candidates know that each one would get an individual question, so it's specific to them. They don't know what that is, but I'm going to go ahead and just jump into those. And actually, we'll do this. So one of the ones on the app, and the one that I was going to ask anyway, was another commissioner question. And since we just had that question, we'll go ahead and do that. So for all of you, are there any former commissioners or directors you'd like to recruit back to work on your team or keep on your team in the case of the current governor? So we'll go ahead and start there, and you have to remind me who started last time at this point. Actually, Governor Walker, I think it's your turn to start, if I recall.
Well, I'd like to have them all back. I mean, it was a phenomenal team we put together. The challenge is, one of them is the president of the university system. Another was the president of the Alaska Native Health System. They've moved. Andy Mack is now the CEO of Civic. So they've all moved up, and the Commissioner of Labor, Heidi Dragas, will be the lieutenant governor. So I don't think I'm going to be able to, put that team back. I'd love to. We had a tremendous team. We really did. And I'm not being, disrespectful to anybody. I think most teams are great, but I really would be honored if we could put our team back together again, because we had a phenomenal, nonpartisan, just a group of 25 Alaskans trying to make the best decision for what's best for Alaska.
Thank you. Go ahead, Representative.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I'd like to see Walt Monaghan back. Walt Monaghan was Commissioner of Public Safety. Walt believed that we should have a law enforcement officer in every community in the state. How radical an idea is that? In Alaska today, we have over 50 communities with no police, where you can be assaulted, where you can be mugged, where you can be harmed, and you can wait 2 days while that aggressor lords over you for 2 days. And then a trooper comes in. That is 19th century policing. It's not even 20th century policing. It's an embarrassment. It's a total embarrassment. Walt Monaghan wanted to change that. Look, Sean Parnell had a law enforcement officer in every community plan. It didn't work. I will make one work. It is not rocket science. It is not rocket science to tell a community they get equal public safety, so Mike Williams Sr. doesn't have to sue in court to demand equal public safety. Everybody deserves public safety in the state.
Thank you. Governor.
I would say that the commissioners we have now are great. They're doing a fantastic job. And for example, when you do look at public safety, over the last few years, several years of my administration, we've put tremendous number of resources into public safety. Our trooper numbers are up, our VPSO numbers are up, our prosecuting attorney numbers are up. And as a result of that, our crime rate is down to historic lows in many cases. And this is FBI statistics, down 30%. If you remember a bill called SB 91, and you thought about where you were going to park your car here in Anchorage, and just about every day in the Anchorage Daily News was discussions about how bad the crime was, you don't see that anymore. So all of our commissioners, I think, are really good. I'd keep them, and our public safety is actually doing really well.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we'll do the personal question. These are ones that, were crafted specifically for each candidate. Each of them has a particular issue that we thought we would tackle. So these have not been provided in advance and will be unique to them. So Governor, I'll just go ahead and start with you because you're the first one here in my script. And these are going to be tough. These are tough questions, but you're pros and you'll do great. So Governor, your administration began its time in office by proposing a budget with deep cuts to items like the Marine Highway, the university, K-12 education. Some Alaskans fear that if reelected, your administration will feel like they can revisit those budget reductions. What do you say to those voters?
I would say those were different times. When we were running for office in the spring and summer of that year, the price of oil was going up. It was going up. In October, right before the election, the price of oil hit about $84 a barrel. So at that stage of the game, there was no plan to do steep reductions. We got into office. We were handed a $1.6 billion deficit, and we had to make some very difficult decisions. I think, I've been asked this question before, but I think if I had to do it all over again, I would have communicated much more clearly, much more vigorously with the people of Alaska as to what happened and why there needed to be reductions at that time. But right now, I don't see history repeating itself.
Thank you. Okay, Representative Guerra, just for you, as a legislator, you were known to butt heads with the oil industry on a variety of issues frequently. How will you ensure your relationship with the state's most important economic driver is productive and not adversarial?
Thank you. I think you're wrong about that. I supported development. I actually supported voting. I voted to open ANWR. I wrote a letter to the Obama administration saying that Conoco should be allowed to develop CD5 when a bridge was being blocked so they couldn't develop that field. What I have asked for is a fair share for our oil, so we're equal partners with the oil industry, not junior partners. Today we give away $1.2 billion in oil company subsidies that are undeserved, they are unjustified, and they are preventing us from doing what we need to move this state forward. Look, right now with those oil subsidies, this governor has made people fight between a PFD or schools, $250 million of cuts he proposed, or a university, or a marine highway, or renewable energy projects. We could have all of those things and move this state forward if we ended that $1.2 billion of unjustified subsidies, which you get even if you don't invest in Alaska. Even if you write the state of Alaska a letter and
You're
say,
out of time.
I'm taking that money to Libya, you still get the money. It's an insane policy. Thank you.
Okay. And lastly, Governor Walker. Some of your supporters include individuals who are aligned with or tied to environmental groups or organizations that advocate for keep-it-in-the-ground policies that would obviously cripple the Alaska oil and gas industry. What can you say to the people in this room who fear your cabinet, if reelected, would be included, your cabinet would include people with those anti-development views?
You know, we are, one of the beauties of a unity ticket, you get to listen to everybody, and no one gets shut out the door. So we listen to folks that you might be surprised that we're listening to, but we listen to them to hear their perspective. You know, our goal is to make sure our resources are developed to the maximum extent possible under our Constitution, but also in such a way that Alaskans feel comfortable they're not going to be surprised by something. You know, there's a tremendous mine on Prince of Wales that done exactly that. They sat down with the community, said, here's what we want to do, what do you think? They provided input. So I'm big at listening to all sides and not just pick who I want to listen to and just go with that. Ultimately, the decisions are made, you know, by myself and Lieutenant Governor, and we are very, very pro-resource development in Alaska.
Thank you.
Have been.
Okay, we're going to go back to a question that was provided ahead of time, and this time, Representative Guerra, we'll start with you. Actually, this might be a little bit redundant just from your last answer, but there have been several fiscal policy proposals debated in the legislature over the last 6 to 8 years that include raising oil taxes to generate more state revenue. What is your view? Does the state need to raise more revenue, and if so, would you support an increase in oil taxes?
Look, you can have the state you have today where this governor has made you fight between a permanent fund or $250 million of cuts to schools, which he proposed, or the decimation of the university, which he proposed, or taking $1 billion out of the Power Cost Equalization Fund, which is unfair to rural Alaskans, which he proposed twice. That's the state you can have. That's not the state I believe in. I believe everybody deserves dignity and opportunity. By ending oil company subsidies that are unjustified and coming up with a sane oil tax system and having an extra $1 billion back that people own because the resources in the state are owned by the people in the state, a fair tax for the oil industry and for the people of Alaska. We have schools, we have pre-K, we have a university, we train people for this generation's and the next generation's jobs, we have renewable energy across the state, we build an economy that people believe in and that puts people back to work.
Thank you. And I think...
I know the question.
Okay, you got it. All right, go ahead.
When we came into office, the oil plummeted to $26 a barrel and stayed there. We had a $4.3 billion hole in our budget. We put together a full fiscal plan to the legislature, not just pulling on one lever, a full fiscal plan. The biggest part of our fiscal plan was transitioning over to a percentage of market value, POMV, from our permanent fund. You know, earnings. What we did is we shifted, we got that passed, and we shifted the dependence on oil in Alaska from 90% down to 30%. That's a significant change in Alaska. Other governments have tried that. We did that because it had to be done. It was time to do it. And because our bipartisan support that we had in our administration, that's how we got that done. That was a critical piece. We didn't get it finished. You know, we still had a gap. We did leave with $1 billion deficit, not $1.6 billion, $1 billion deficit. That has not been addressed yet. It's still out there.
Go ahead, Gov.
We've put billions of dollars in savings this year. We have fully funded education. We've forward funded education. We've paid down debt. We actually are in better shape today fiscally than when I came into the office. We paid off oil tax credits. We have a better credit rating from the credit rating agencies. With regard to taxes, it's always go tax one industry in the state of Alaska. So for example, Willow and Pika, once they get online, will provide around $400 million more to the state of Alaska without an additional tax. The heavy oil research that we have funded this year has the potential of bringing billions of dollars, not some pie in the sky. The oil is there, it's permitted, we know where it's at. Billions of dollars of additional revenue to the state of Alaska. We've been approached by outfits outside that want to talk to us about carbon sequestration and carbon transfer credits, including our forests and the caverns that we have in the state of Alaska. Well over $1 billion of new revenue there. So
out of time.
You have folks that want to tax more for the sake of taxing. We want to get money for Alaska in terms of revenue doing smart approaches. And so billions of dollars could be had through these methods we just described.
Okay. All right, we're going to move up to the Arctic. That's been a hot topic at the conference throughout the last 2 days. And in fact, our last panel was talking all about opportunity and for sequestration, all those good things. So here is the next question. What do you see as Alaska's role in carbon sequestration or carbon capture? And I believe Governor Dunleavy, you get to go first this time.
Huge. It's a huge opportunity. Carbon is now a commodity to be monetized. You speak with the Japanese, they feel the same way. Investors down south, they feel the same way. States like California feel the same way. So in terms of sequestering in our basins such as Cook Inlet, tremendous opportunity. 50 gigatons of carbon is the discussion that's happening now. Sequestering carbon on the slope, obvious, that's a winner down the road as well. But also sequestering off our coasts. There is work being done on kelp, for example, and also sequestering in our forests. So tremendous opportunity to monetize carbon, billions of dollars in potential revenue for the state of Alaska without really changing much or doing much different than we do now.
Representative Guerra?
Thank you. That's a tremendous opportunity that this governor's had 4 years to exercise and act on, and he's done nothing. So it is opportunity, but when you're governor, you should actually act and do the job. Look, carbon sequestration, it's a long word. It's the way we address global warming in this world. If you don't believe in global warming, I think you disagree with the newer generation who understands that's an existential threat to the people of this world, right? But we can develop our natural gas and our natural resources in a clean way if we can capture the carbon. There is discussion, right? There is research that says we may be able to do this, and that will make our natural gas much more valuable to the world. There is only a limited amount of time you can sell dirty energy to the world, and if we can put that carbon underground and make a natural gas pipeline a clean pipeline, like a real promise of a clean pipeline, we will be able to sell it. If you make false promises, you're going to have a hard time. We've been fighting for a gas line for 30 years in the state.
Thank you. Governor Walker.
No question, monetizing our vast resources of stranded gas, the largest stranded gas in North America, if not the world, would be a tremendous carbon sequestration by doing that. You know, our gas has been coming out with oil since first oil came out in 76, and it's been being put back in the ground. You know, so when the gas comes out with the oil and the gas goes back in, we put the gas into a piece of pipe or offshore, offshore from Point Thompson. You know, there's multiple ways we can do that, but in the process, we're putting the carbon back into the ground. So we've known that for a long time. That's a very significant carbon sequestration project for the world, and certainly the largest in Alaska. Thank
you. Okay, we're going to go to an audience question, which they continue to flood in, so thank you all for participating. You're going to have to help me remember who's first. I think it's the governor this time. I love this question because all of you have held elected office. So looking back, what was your toughest moment while serving in office?
When we were told that when we were asked by the U.S. State Department to receive a plane from Wuhan, China, in which there were State Department officials and their families scrambling to get on this charter to get out of there, and they needed a place to land here in North America. And we were informed that there was a virus. We didn't turn them away. We got our team together. This is in January, well before it hit just about anywhere else. We got our act together. We got our team together. We met that plane. We tested them properly. We helped a young woman who had injured her arm, and then we sent them on their way to the lower 48 where they were going. It was at that moment that we knew, my administration knew, the world would never be the same. We got out ahead of that whole virus. And as mentioned earlier, we have the second lowest death rates in the nation, the third lowest death numbers in the nation, third lowest per capita death rates, and the highest survivability rate because we saw what was coming, we planned, and we addressed it.
Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you. I had a year. Look, the legislature can be too partisan. As a legislator, as a Democrat, I've worked with Republicans. The largest foster care reform in state history, I got passed through a 15-5 Republican Senate with every single member of the Senate, one by one, standing up and co-sponsoring the bill. You have to be able to work across party lines. There was 1 year I was told when I was in the minority that no Democratic bills were going to pass. And that was tough at first. And I was like, you know, nobody's going to stop me from working. So what my office did was we started a program to get laptops to foster youth, and that still exists today. We've gotten thousands of foster youth laptops. And we started a program that the state now runs to get discount clothing to foster youth. That's called Fosterwear. The state now runs it. We founded it. We started a program to get mentors to foster youth. Big Brothers, Big Sisters now runs it. I do not let obstacles get in my way. If somebody tells me that I can't move forward, I move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Governor Walker.
For me, it was during the opioid crisis. The families that came to me in groups and in mass talking about the loss of life of their loved ones, of their students who had an injury in high school, a sports injury, and got addicted unintentionally on opioids, ultimately lost their life. There was one community, which I won't name, who lost a significant number of their sports players at that. I issued a declaration of disaster because Alaskans were dying. And that's what you do when Alaskans are dying. You issue a declaration of disaster. But not just that, we stood up a task force for opioid crisis task force. We had Narcan, the legislature passed Narcan legislation. We made Narcan kits at the governor's house, at the people's house. You know, we aggressively went after the opioid crisis. That was a very dark time. And yes, crime was at an all-time high during the opioid crisis. That's as it was in every other place in the country. So,
Thank you. All right, we'll go back to one of the questions that was provided in advance, and this time we're going to talk about the state of California. The state of California is banning the sale of new gasoline-powered vehicles starting in 2035. Is that an approach you'd support in Alaska, or is there a better alternative to the energy transition, or maybe a better approach? And Representative Guerra, I think you're first.
Thank you very much. This is Alaska. This is not California. This is not New York. I don't know Nancy Pelosi, though there will be ads from the other side putting a picture of Nancy Pelosi next to me, who I've never met. I don't agree with their positions on oil. I don't agree with their positions on fishing. They don't understand this is an outdoor state. And in California, we're not going to mimic their policies, but we are going to build renewable energy across this state. It will lower the cost of energy. It'll put people to work. It'll do something about global warming, which is what people want, jobs and something about global warming. Look, we need to upgrade the efficiency of diesel plants. That sounds odd to people, but the energy you don't burn is the cleanest energy you have. And we will have diesel that integrates with renewable energy, especially in rural Alaska, but you have to upgrade the efficiency of those plants so they burn less diesel. Look, the university should be an Arctic Renewables Research Center. We should be producing jobs. We should be a center of resource and renewable energy development in this state.
Go ahead, Governor Walker.
What happens in California should stay in California. We don't really look to California as a leader in anything that we do in Alaska, so we certainly won't in our administration. You know, Alaska is extremely unique. I'm not in favor of mandating what kind of car someone drives, what kind of fuel somebody uses. We need, you know, some communities you couldn't, you know, we're 242 airports in Alaska, good grief. There's no way we're going to find one thing that's going to be, you know, fit for every single community, whatnot. That's a local decision, you know, let the economy drive that. You know, some of the electric cars coming out, a lot of our residents couldn't afford something of that, and those are quite expensive. So we'll let California be California, we'll take care of Alaska, and we'll be fine.
Thank you. Governor Dunleavy.
The fact of the matter is Alaska is an all-in state under my administration. We're going to embrace the Californians that want to leave California once they do this forced conversion here in Alaska. But along our coast where we have hydro and we have renewables, we have some of the highest per capita numbers of electric cars in the United States in our cities on the coast. We're going to be commissioning or cutting a ribbon here shortly on one of the largest solar farms here in Alaska. We have solar farms up in Kotzebue. We have wind farms all over the state. Kodiak is 100% renewable. That doesn't mean it's an either or. We can also be the biggest state in terms of producing oil and gas, which is my goal under this administration. And so it's an all-in state. I welcome what California does because I think it's just going to create tremendous opportunity for us here in Alaska. And the more they do something like that, the more room we're going to have to make for people up here.
Thank you. Okay, so there's definitely a theme coming in on these audience questions. So we're going to go to an audience question now, and Governor Dunleavy, I'll let you go first this time. They're all related to fishing, commercial fishing, and revenues. And so to summarize the 5 or so questions here I've got on this topic, basically, does the commercial fishing industry pay enough in taxes and royalties? Why is oil and gas the only resource paying high royalties? Would you support a fishing royalty? There's no royalty paid on fishing. So you're getting the theme here, and these are all unique. This is not the same person. So that's if there's one area that may be more sticky and more political than oil, I've heard it's fish. So I know that's a big topic, but if you can just do the best you can in 45 seconds, that would be great. Thank you.
So again, my goal is not to tax more on existing industries, but to create new industries here in the state of Alaska. We talked about our carbon possibilities. We are probably closer to a large gas line than we ever have. We've got all the permits. We're in conversations with the Japanese customers. We have investors looking at this pipeline. Tremendous opportunity. The heavy oil that we mentioned, tremendous opportunity. But to just double down and tax more on existing industries, it's not necessarily, doesn't make any sense, and it's going to stifle growth. So my answer to that question, Sarah, would be simply, let's do more in the resource development area. Let's do more in oil and gas. Let's do more in carbon and carbon sequestration and with our renewables. If we do that, we aren't going to need to tax more industries to get the revenue that we need.
All right, next up, Representative, taxes on fish.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I don't believe in taxing the fishing industry. We don't need to. If we end these oil company subsidies, $1.2 billion of money we give to the oil industry, when we should be equal partners with them, and then we would just have a simple profits tax. Oil companies make a profit, we share in it. They don't make a profit, we don't. But if we end those tax credits, $1.2 billion comes to the state, you don't need to tax anybody else. The last thing Alaskans want is to be taxed when they don't need to be. But that money will help us build renewable energy, restore the schools that this governor tried to cut by $250 million his first year. Look, oil prices are going down. We know it. They've gone down over $20 just in the last 2 months. When Russia leaves Ukraine, oil prices will go down, and we want Russia to leave Ukraine as soon as possible. And we will be back to that budget where if this governor doesn't do anything on revenue, you will lose your schools, you will lose your ability to build renewable energy, we will have an exodus of jobs
You're
again.
out of time.
We need to do better.
Thank you. Governor Walker.
Well, the skies look a lot bluer with $147 oil than they do at $26 oil, I can tell you that. And that's what we dealt with. I am not driven by increased taxes on anybody, but the reality is, the more we continue to talk about, bigger and bigger and bigger dividends, at some point we have to pay for that. We've gone through $18 billion in savings without a fiscal plan. So without a fiscal plan, we are headed to a significant tax increase. We will go from the lowest in the nation to the highest in the nation if we don't get a fiscal plan. And we submitted a full fiscal plan, a broad-based fiscal plan, and necessary, we'll do that again.
Go ahead, Governor.
So under my administration, we dealt with negative $3 barrel oil, and we didn't tax the industry. We dealt with $26 barrel oil too.
Wait, twice. Oh, sorry, you've already answered this question,
okay.
Governor. Sorry, lost track. Okay, I will just say that based on the comments coming in, I think we could have a whole debate on fishing. The answers you all provided only spurred more questions, but I'm going to try to move us on to some different topics. So we'll go ahead and do that. And Representative Guerra, we will go back to questions that we provided in advance, and we will start with you. Just give me a second here. As companies and entities are struggling for capital, how will your administration improve Alaska's competitiveness?
Look, first, it's not just oil companies, right? The Alaska ADA has been run like a 1960s agency under this governor. You cannot keep pushing the projects you pushed in 1960. We need to move on to the future. We should be helping mariculture companies move forward so small businesses can develop and grow and produce jobs. We should be using that agency to help people create the economy of the future. In terms of oil development, we need to stop allowing large companies blocking small companies, independents, from accessing their oil fields. Alaska should be open for business, and we shouldn't allow the big three to close Alaska for business. Independents know that. They'll tell you privately that they're deterred from coming up here. We're pushing away jobs. We're pushing away development. While we still have this window of opportunity to sell our oil while there's demand in the world, I would rather sell ours, not dirty Canadian tar sands oil, not oil that makes Canadian or Saudi Arabian sheiks subjugate their women. I would rather sell our oil while there's still a demand for it, but we're deterring that by allowing the large companies to block the independents from developing in the state.
So we have oil independence here in the state. We just talked about Pica and Repsol. We have independents up here. We want more of them up here. But Les's solution to this problem, or any problem, is tax the oil companies more, tax business more. Our mariculture industry is growing faster under my administration than any other state in the country. We have investments in cold storage at the airport in the tune of $500 million, $500 million. We have more folks looking at the gas line than we ever had before. We have tremendous opportunity in food security and farming. We have outside outfits and outfits inside the state of Alaska looking at the 140,000 acre agricultural parcel we just commissioned this last May. We have tremendous opportunity here in Alaska. But if you want to tax these industries, you're going to make sure that they don't come here and they go somewhere else to make a dollar.
Governor Walker, I believe you're next.
I think I still recall the question based on the flavor of the discussion. The best thing we can do is resolve our fiscal deficit. We need a stable fiscal economy so that when they come in here, they know that they're not all of a sudden going to have a target on their back because we ran out of money because we're busy, getting reelected or elected or running on as high a dividend as possible. So we need to have a fiscal plan resolved. We need to provide the infrastructure that we can in the bipartisan infrastructure bill that at least Senator Murkowski worked so hard on. There's some opportunities there in infrastructure for resource development in Alaska. And the third thing is that permitting. My gosh, the permitting is the biggest challenge that there is because it takes so doggone long. We as a state should start the permitting process before we put it out to lease. So it's like in a furnished apartment. When you come in and get the lease, there's permits already in place. So we started years before to go through that process. We can be more aggressive with the federal government than any company can because you have projects all over the country, the United States. We don't. We just have them in Alaska. So we need to start that process.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to do a lightning round, and then I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. So go ahead and grab your paddles, gentlemen, please, and make sure they're facing the right direction. Okay, real quick. Would you seek a Jones Act waiver for Alaska? Do you support federal agencies preemptively vetoing a project before it is allowed to go through the regulatory process? Do you support the passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act?
Which one was that again?
I'm sorry?
Infrastructure bipartisan one?
That was one from November.
Yep.
And do you support the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act? That was just like last couple weeks. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, we're gonna turn down the heat a little bit, and I'm gonna ask. This is not an audience question. This is a Sarah question, and I'm going to ask each of you to say something nice about each one of your opponents. The mom in me is like, all right, we need to take a break and recalibrate here. So think long and hard. With all honesty, you're all former colleagues. I'm sure it'll be very nice. Rachel, remind me who I start with because I'm having a hard time with that. Governor Walker, you go right ahead.
Well, Governor Dunleavy, I appreciate your years as an educator and the time you spent as an educator, and I appreciate your passion for education, and I appreciated you retaining my Commissioner of Education when you came into office. We had that conversation beforehand, and I appreciate you doing that. So thanks for your years as an educator. And now I say something about Les?
Yes, it's all in.
Thank you for your passion for foster care children, and thank you for using your past as a passion for others and caring for others. I remember the bill that you were so worked so hard on and was not going to get to the floor. I was honored to put it on a call of the House. A special session call, and I believe it passed unanimously. So thank you very much for your passion in that area, and yeah.
Okay, that's so much better, right? Okay, thank you. That's wonderful. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you. Governor Dunleavy and I, you think of Juneau as completely partisan. You've got to find ways to talk to people across party lines, right? Governor Dunleavy and I would talk in the lounge and we talk about fishing, right? Like, he grew up in Pennsylvania and he talked about his days fishing in Pennsylvania. I'm sort of obsessed. I've gone this whole summer without fishing once. It hurts. But I usually fish 30, 40 days a year. It's something we both love, and I think fish bind Alaskans. If there's one thing that binds Alaskans, it's fish, whether you're commercial or sport or subsistence fishermen. So that with Governor Walker, look, we've always gotten along personally. There are things we agree on, things we don't agree on. But what Governor Walker, and what I respect about him, it's something I believe in too, is that he doesn't look at party labels. You try and work across party lines. You try and get things done. I've always tried to do that. I've seen Governor Walker try and do that. Look, they're different things. We have some agreements, some disagreements, but you've got to work across party lines. You know, I've heard the statement that you're supposed to only represent those people who voted for you. I despise that idea. You represent the whole state, every single person, every single ethnicity. You know, I was once accused when I was on the finance committee of being the rural representative from Anchorage because I was voting for rural projects. That's what you do. You represent the whole state. I took it as a compliment, even though it was meant as an insult.
Thank you. Go ahead, Governor.
I think we also discussed the Yankees. Bucky did.
Oh, God.
That's a inside, no pun, inside baseball. But
Pained Red Sox fan.
yeah. No, there's a number of things I can say positively about these two gentlemen. And but the thing I'll say is, I'm actually glad they still have a passion to serve. They still have a passion to run for this for an office, because it's a tough time in this country over the past 2 years. It has gotten a little hot, as Sarah would say. But I think here in Alaska, you know, we see each other at the supermarket or at Lowe's or in a park or getting on the airplane. It's really a small town kind of state. It's like a big family. And so I want to thank these guys for still wanting to help Alaska and still wanting to be part of the process.
Thank you. Okay, but I thought we just needed that little intermission. So, okay, now we're going to get back to the really thorny questions. This is another one that is for each of you individually, so they're all different, and were written for some kind of unique traits. And I'm going to start with Representative Guerra this time. Thank you, Rachel. So, Representative Guerra, this is a very simple question. Since you are in a room full of people who are involved with the oil and gas industry, can you say one nice thing about the industry?
This is where you have it wrong, Sarah. I mean, this is your narrative, not mine. I've voted to help get Conoco that permit they needed to develop CD5, which has resulted in the development of Moose's Tooth and Bear Tooth. I voted to open ANWR. I voted for oil development. I just believe what I was taught by Jay Hammond when he used to come to my kitchen table. We were friends in his later years. And Wally Hickel. Jay Hammond and Wally Hickel, when we were allowing 16 of the 19 fields on the North Slope to pay 0% in production taxes, they joined my first press release and said that's not right. But Jay Hammond always said, first, you get a fair share for your oil. I believe in being equal partners with the oil industry. I just don't believe in giving away our oil so children don't have schools. So foster kids beg. I don't believe that we should undersell our oil so we cannot build the projects that Governor Dunleavy says he'll do his next 4 years but didn't build these 4 years. We need renewable energy across the state. We need police in communities that have no police. You tell me how to do that without money.
Time's up.
We have to be equal partners.
Okay, and just a note, Representative Guerra, I'm the moderator. I'm reading the script that has been developed by a
Thank
committee.
You. I didn't
so
mean,
just bear that in mind, please.
I don't know who that statement came from. Sorry, but it was wrong.
Okay. So moving on, Governor Walker, will go to you. So you've been known for years as someone who's quite passionate about the gas pipeline. Some Alaskans believe if reelected, you could become a single-issue governor. How do you respond to that criticism or that belief?
Well, my passion is to monetize that gas. You know, the 200 TCF on the north and the Prudhoe Bay that's of conventional gas, that's worth $50 billion to Alaska, our share of that. $200 billion in total. Of the unconventional was $590 billion TCF, and that's another $200 billion. So we need to monetize that however we do that. Either it's a piece of pipe from Nikiski, which has 80 permits already, used to have interest from the Asian market, or does it go off somewhere go off the North Slope? Does it become another commodity? You know, I don't think we have to pick and choose winners on how that it is monetized. We just have to monetize it. I mean, it is a tremendous, you know, if we had that monetized at Prudhoe Bay, that $50 billion would be enough to be an endowment for education. Texas has a $45 billion endowment for education. What a tremendous opportunity to take that resource, monetize it, and have a $50 billion education endowment. So yeah, I'm pretty passionate about monetizing our resources in Alaska, absolutely.
Thank you. Governor Dunleavy, your specific question was, you were governor during this recent global pandemic with all of its ups and downs and twists and turns. What grade would you give yourself in handling that crisis and why?
You know, that's a tough one, Sarah, because you really can't celebrate in any form or fashion a pandemic and the results of that. But again, if the question is, how did Alaska fare, if you look at certain stats, again, when it comes to our death rates, when it comes to our survivability rate, we're one of the tops. We were supposed to get wiped out. We were supposed to have a repeat of the 1918 Spanish flu here in Alaska. A flu that took the life of my mother-in-law's father, a flu that took the life of a lot of elders in the communities that I used to live in. And so I would say that it's very difficult to celebrate, but if you look at statistics, Alaska was supposed to do a lot worse. And I think we surprised just about everybody in this country on how well we did with this, get through this virus. It's not over yet, but it's still, I think it's a testament to the Adam Crum and his staff in the Department of Health.
Thank you. Okay. We will move on, and we are going to, on a lot of, we've gotten a few questions on the app, and also I just know it's on people's minds after the election results yesterday. But we're going to talk about ranked choice voting. And the question, if I summarize them, I've gotten a couple here, but they're similar, is would you support its repeal either through a citizens initiative or if a bill was passed and it landed on your desk as governor? And we'll go with Governor Dunleavy. Yes, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I believe if I win, I think it's a great system. No, I'm kidding. You have to play this out. We have to see what the results are. We have to see how this goes, right? This has been an interesting year. The passing of Don Young, a special election, a special primary, special general on the primary for the regular election. So to be fair, we're going to have to see how this pans out. It's a new, definitely a brand new approach to voting. It's too early to tell. I think we'll be able to do a post game when this is wrapped up.
All right, Representative Guerra.
Yeah, I'm somebody that believes that when the voters pass an initiative, you support it, unless it's a terrible, terrible, terrible idea that harms people. And so, look, the voters passed it. I'm not going to tell the voters that I know better than they do. There are parts of ranked choice voting I think are very important. The part that requires these outside groups to reveal their donors when they issue their attack ads on TV, like the Republican Governors Association has put $3 million into this race. It's money from cigarette companies. It's money from outside drug companies and insurance companies. I want to know where that money's coming from. And so that law also requires that on the ads, we find out who the biggest donors are from those companies. I actually wrote that original law with Hollis French, and ranked choice voting strengthened it because we only had so much ability to get so much passed that year. And I like that part. I think we should put these donors in the open and let people know who's really funding these negative ads.
All right. Governor Walker.
Yes, I think we're going to all agree on this somewhat. I think that I certainly support the voter initiative, and there was three things. It was not just the ranked choice voting, that was one. The second thing was the dark money that Representative Guerra talked about, and I think we need to know what that is. We won't know for $3 million of it that Governor Dunleavy received 36 hours before, but we won't know all the money that we put in since then. And the third thing is it's an open primary. You know, legislators, elected officials, electors can be themselves and not be worried about being primaried. We've seen some wonderful, incredible legislators that were primaried some years ago because they reach across the aisle and solve some problems. So it really levels the playing field and lets them be who they need to be to solve the problems. That's what they're elected for, is to solve the problems for their constituents. So I certainly allow it to continue on. I would veto any bill that came across to take that away, what the initiative put in place.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on. We're going to go back to the Arctic here, and we're going to start with Representative Guerra this time. There is an anti-Arctic movement in boardrooms right now. What would you do if elected to fight this and to improve the investment climate for Alaskan projects? Representative Guerra.
Look, we have to develop responsibly. We can't just say we develop responsibly. So I will do that. Look, I mean, I think let's leave oil for a second. The biggest pox on the mining industry, which has been a responsible industry in the state, is the Pebble Mine. The Pebble Mine is a pox on the mining industry. It is a danger to the world's greatest remaining salmon runs. I disagree on that with Governor Dunleavy. Governor Dunleavy has filed a lawsuit on behalf of Pebble to move that project forward. I would never waste your money to do that. It is a toxic danger to the world's greatest salmon runs. Okay, we have to show the world we're willing to do things right. And if you don't show the world you're willing to do things right, the world suspects that you won't, right? So I think the best thing we could do to show the world what we're going to do is by a governor coming in and saying, we're going to stop the Pebble mine so it's not a danger to the people and the fish of Bristol Bay.
Governor Walker.
Could you repeat the question, Sarah?
Sure. The anti-Arctic sentiment that's going on in boardrooms across the country and the world, what are you going to do to improve the investment climate for Alaskan projects?
Well, a couple of things. One is that we need to tell our own story. You know, we're allowing others to tell our story about how we do things. You know, I talked briefly about my experience with President Obama when I flew with him. A similar situation when I spent time with President Trump, as far as telling our own story about how we do business better in Alaska, how we do it better, we do it cleaner. You know, it's our environment. I mean, we certainly don't want to, you know, do to ourselves what other locales and third world countries may have you know, put upon themselves. So, you know, we are our best stewards. So we need to tell the story ourselves. And I do get back to the you know, for the permitting process. I feel passionate that we have got to be aggressive as a you know, the permittee on these on many of these projects, so that they don't have to go through 10 years. In Texas, it's a matter of weeks to get a permit. In Alaska, it's about 10 years to get a permit to actually do it. That's a very significant disadvantage that Alaska has.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Governor.
Thank you. So just a clarification. Bill mentioned that I'm getting $3 million from the RGA. I'm not getting $3 million from the RGA. And as far as Les goes, we, you know, my administration is not going to stop any opportunity that could bring jobs, wealth, and prosperity to the state of Alaska. And what's happening nationally is you've got this forced conversion like we're seeing in California, but also this social engineering that's coming out of Washington, D.C., telling us whether we can or cannot drill in the state of Alaska. What they're going to find here shortly, and they're actually finding this out now, is that a number of those investment banks and others and Washington that don't want to invest here in the state of Alaska, they're pushing those investments overseas to where there is no regulation when it comes to the environment, where there is child labor, where there's social injustices. And so you do it here, do it in Alaska, do it well, we receive the benefits, and so does the rest of the world.
Thank you. All right, we are going to talk about, young people and the need for a skilled workforce. So this time I'm going to start with you, Governor Walker. And the question is, there have been many young professionals permanently exiting Alaska, leading or contributing to the labor shortage. Plans for, what is your plan to attract young adults to stay in Alaska to live, work, and play here? Governor Walker.
We need to create an environment that they'll come back. It's a matter of not just stopping them from leaving so that they will come back. You know, Bill Popp of the Anchorage Economic Development Council did a tremendous presentation a few weeks ago about why they're leaving. You know, we're not investing in ourselves. We're not investing in our communities. You know, they want to see a you know, higher quality of life. You know, they want to see a future. I mean, they're concerned, you know, that what is the future of this state as they see, you know, 1,100 teachers shortage, when they see ferries that are tied up. You know, when we see we're 49th in the nation as far as the economic recovery post-COVID, they need to see that there's a reason to come back. And we need to make sure that we have our fiscal plan, that we have our resource development plan, we have our job training, we have, you know, we have lost sight of what it takes to keep young people in this state. We need to change that and bring them back.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Dunleavy.
We need to do everything we can to promote investment here in the state of Alaska. And as I mentioned, that's why we have a peak investment now of multi-billion dollars, which is going to provide thousands of jobs. We have cold storage investments at the airport, which is going to provide a tremendous number of jobs. You've got to go to a place where there's opportunity. And Alaska, you know, our motto is north to the future, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that our kids stay north to the future. As a teacher, and I got to push back on a little bit of a narrative here, Sarah, but as a teacher who taught out in rural Alaska, taught in urban Alaska, was an administrator, worked for the University of Alaska, we have tremendous opportunity in our human capital. We got to make sure that we get people in Juneau that agree that we need to have a reading bill and focus on reading and not get it gummed up in the political world that some folks create down there.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we're going to...
Actually didn't get my shot at that one.
Go right ahead.
Can you remember the question now?
Sure, we are talking about keeping young people here.
Look, it's amazing to me that as a teacher, somebody would propose $250 million of cuts to public education. It's amazing to me that as a teacher, somebody would propose cutting the university by 40% so that it makes headlines across the country, that that's what we're doing to the future, creating none for the next generation. Look, one of the reasons I'm running is because I believe people deserve opportunity, and I think if you're not born to a comfortable family, you are kicked to the side in the state, and that's why I'm running, because I want to make sure everybody has a chance to succeed. Look, I don't want that $1.2 billion of subsidies to end just for the sake of it. I want to make sure we have a construction budget that puts people to work, right? You've heard about cold storage. You know where they don't have cold storage? Individual fishermen don't have it in Ketchikan because we don't do community grants anymore. Because we don't have a construction budget anymore except for this 1 year of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and we have high oil prices, right? You need to have a construction budget and a capital budget that puts people to work. As of last year, it was 1/4 of what it was in 2014. That's the loss of 4,000 jobs. Those people have left this state. That's why we have no more workers in the state. They've left.
Thank you. Okay. I've got 2 questions have come in from the audience, so we're going to pivot to healthcare. And if I'm trying to put these 2 together, basically from the commercial side, these are questions about employers and providing employee healthcare. What ideas do you have to reduce the cost of healthcare specifically for the commercial sector? And this time we will start with Governor Dunleavy.
So again, I believe that we've got a great health and social services department, and that we've split that department this past year so we can focus on the family service side of things, as well as focus on the health side, including Medicaid. There's a number of options that states are looking at that the private sector can be part of. We're looking at a whole host of things with regard to the possibility of, and I'm trying to remember the term, but it's almost an Alaska Club a process where you have a membership with a particular a hospital, or excuse me, a professional agency in which you can be part of that so that you can reduce your cost. But again, there's a number of things that we're looking at.
You can finish your sentence.
That's all right.
That's okay. All right. Go ahead, Representative Guerra.
Yeah, I would do what Congress didn't do, right? I mean, you want to talk about criticizing the federal government. They did not pass a cap on co-pays for insulin for people who have diabetes. There are people with diabetes who spend thousands of dollars a year out of pocket just to pay for the medicine that keeps them alive. Congress failed to do it. I will do that as governor. I have said that already. We should have a $30 a month cap on copays for people who need insulin to stay alive. That is a crime. As a legislator, I helped reduce the cost of prescription drugs. There used to be a law that said a pharmacist could not tell you if there was a cheaper alternative. And I helped change that law. I co-sponsored and wrote the law that changed that. So a pharmacist now has to tell you if there's a cheaper prescription drug option for you. There are things we can do. Governor Walker and I both agreed on Medicaid expansion to expand health coverage to tens of thousands of people. I tried to do it as a legislature. Governor Dunleavy blocked it. Governor Walker then had to sign it into law as a governor, but we agree on that.
Thank you. Governor Walker.
When I ran on the issue of health care, we had opportunities in Alaska that were not being taken advantage of as far as Medicaid expansion. So when the legislature was not able to get it onto the floor for a vote, I put it on a special session. That didn't happen, and so I, by my own signature, accepted Medicaid expansion. That brought down the cost of health care. Now the 70,000 Alaskans that have health care coverage are not going to facilities that are not getting paid. The number of hospitals in Alaska that were are now solvent because of Medicaid expansion is significant. So, and some of the rural hospitals across our state. So, you know, there are. We should not be afraid. You know, I know we do battle daily with the federal government, but there are some programs that are absolutely phenomenal that we don't go after because we just don't want to engage with them, and we will. The same as we did on Medicaid expansion, we'll bring down the cost of health care.
Okay. I'm going to try to keep you guys on time, but please feel free to finish your thought. I don't mean to cut you off mid-sentence. Everybody wants to hear what you're saying. Okay, so we will move on to an audience question, which I love this one. This, if I'm looking at I think you guys will like this because you've all been in elected office. which decision, policy, vote, if you could go back in time and do it over, would you do? And that would, and you are up first, Representative Guerra. This is the one where you don't want to be first, sorry.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to name names. There are two attorney generals that I voted to confirm because I believe that a governor should get their appointees. I just believe that. I gave Sarah Palin almost all her appointees, maybe everyone, I can't remember. But I don't want to make this personal. There are a couple attorney generals I think were not qualified. I should not have voted for them. I felt like I should because my view is a governor gets their way on their appointees. But yeah, I'm not going to name them. I don't want to up the temperature around here. Yes, those are votes that I regret.
Thank you. Governor Walker, or actually, let me see, I'm making sure I'm in the right order. Okay, go ahead.
Is it me?
Hold on.
It's Governor Walker.
Yep, it's Governor Walker, you're up.
Okay. Is an awkward question. You know, I don't want to make it personal. Are there some appointments I made that I, in hindsight, probably wouldn't have made? Yeah, of course there are. You know, but I'm certainly not going to, you know, some of them are running for positions right now, and so didn't turn out what I thought was best for their district. I appointed 27 judges, and I feel very comfortable with all 27 judges that I appointed. So those were so I don't really have a big rearview mirror about which I could have and should have and whatnot. I don't have time for that. It really is a matter of you do learn from everything you do, by the way. Every time you make a decision, you learn something from that decision you make, and you move on, and it helps you with further decisions. I'm sure there's plenty of folks who could help me with that answer around the state, but nothing comes to mind.
Thank you. Go ahead, Governor Dunleavy.
I sort of answered it earlier, and that was in the first year when we were handed a $1.6 billion deficit, I could have explained better to the people of Alaska why we had to reduce the budget. And I'll admit I failed to do that well. And so we learned from that mistake. And as a result of that, during the pandemic, for example, I think we had over 130 reports every day for the people of Alaska. We communicated with every organization in the state of Alaska. We formed partnerships with just about every other entity in the state of Alaska. So I would say that if I had to do it all over again, I would have explained that those reductions and why in much clarity, much better detail.
Thank you. Oh, look, everyone's on time. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to just inject a quick fun question. This will take you, it won't take, we're just going to go down the line because this is audience provided, and I just feel like we need another moment of levity. And the question is, do you own a dog? And if so, what is its name and what species is it? And we're just going to go down the line. Go ahead, Governor.
Okay, we have 3 dogs, Olive, Blue, and Mr. Tito.
And what species are they?
Olive and Blue are blue heelers, and Mr. Tito is this 4-pound, hairy little dog.
And Tito's a little bit of an Instagram star, too, from what I've seen. Representative Guerra.
We have George and we have Kevin, and they are cats. I'm sorry.
Ooh, the dog-cat debate. Now that could eclipse the fishing industry here. Okay, Governor Walker, go ahead.
We have grand dogs, and our grand dogs, one is Dublin, and Dublin's a challenge. I'm trying to think of what brand it is, but we lost our Luna some time ago, so we enjoyed the visitation with the grandchildren a lot, and with the grand dogs somewhat.
Yes, grand dogs are a thing. I can vouch for that. Okay. All right, so we're going to ask our last question that was provided ahead of time, and then we'll get to closing statements because we're creeping up on our deadline here. So the last formal question is, what do you see as the greatest opportunity for the future of the oil and gas industry in Alaska, and what do you see as the greatest challenges? And in this one, we will start with Governor Walker.
Well, the greatest opportunities is that we have such a vast amount of resources left in our state of Alaska. And it's not in a foreign country. You don't have to use security systems and et cetera. It's right here in the great state of Alaska. So we have a tremendous amount of resources. The biggest challenge is really a couple of things. One is access to it. Getting access to it is a big issue. No one else has ice roads like we do. We need to make sure that, and again, I don't mean to harp on this permitting thing, our biggest detriment on our resource development is the permitting process. There's no question about it. We have got to insert ourselves in such a way that's positive, that's aggressive, and we get the resources done. I look at what we are not allowed to develop in Alaska. The statehood compact said we were created and formed and we're given the resources so we could fund ourselves. If we can't fund ourselves, then send us a check for what we can't develop, because that's a taking. So we have got to have an aggressive permitting process, working along with the companies, but perhaps even ahead of the companies.
All right. Next, Governor Dunleavy.
So our greatest challenges, obviously, are going to be the NGOs and some of the companies that support them, as well as Washington, wanting to socially engineer this country and make sure that fossil fuels end up in the dustbin of history. What we've got going here in Alaska is we've got conventional fields, we've got infrastructure, we have a proven track record. We have a proven track record of being environmentally safe like no other place on the planet. The future, I think, and you heard some of it today in some of the panels, for example, in heavy oil that we have funded here this year with the University of Alaska, has the promise to deliver billions of barrels in the pipeline and not have to worry about getting new permits from Washington, D.C. That would fill our pipeline. The Picas, the Willows, those are the hopes of the future. And converting those dollars, once we get them, into building this state, into a state that we know we can have over the next 50 years for our kids, our grandchildren, I think is paramount. And so our challenges, once again, are those that want to artificially change the market. And what we've got going for us is the fact that we still have billions of barrels of oil, trillions of cubic feet of gas that we're going to be marketing.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Look, we develop oil responsibly in the state, but I think we have to stop talking 1960s language to this new generation who wants to do something about climate change. And by getting a fair share for our oil and having money again in the state, not just relying on a periodic Russian invasion of Ukraine, which we despise, and hopefully they'll be out again and oil prices will be down again because they'll be out, we should be using our oil wealth to build renewable energy across the state, to build clean energy across the state. We can sort of do sort of like a jujitsu on this thing, right? We can take our oil wealth and build a green economy around the state so we have affordable green energy across the state in rural Alaska. In Ikiagik, they have the only in-river power project in the state. We can do so much on renewable energy in the state. You can't do it for free. I mean, I don't want to harp, but this governor has not helped fund a single renewable energy project in the state in his 4 years. We have a renewable energy fund. We need to, again, fund renewable energy projects across the state, and we need oil wealth to do it.
All right, so we're going to go to closing statements, and because I just want to make sure everyone feels like this is fair, I'm going to draw for who gets to go first, second, and third, just so that everyone feels they got a fair shot at it. So you'll have 2 minutes to give us your closing statements. And I want to thank, while I'm pulling these out, I want to thank everybody for the submissions to the iPad. There's no way we got to all of them. I was not anticipating the volume that came through, but thank you for that. We tried to do as best we could. Okay, so in first order, Governor Dunleavy, you'll go, and then Les Gara, and then Governor Walker. So Governor Dunleavy, you have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you once again for having the forum today. You're going to have to make a decision as to what you want Alaska to look like and which governor you want to lead Alaska to that future. What you've heard today, obviously, and pretty clearly, is you've got one candidate that has no record. You've got another candidate that really doesn't want to talk about their record. And you've got another candidate, myself, that's more than happy to talk about the record, in which we have vastly improved the situation of Alaska. We inherited a $1.6 billion deficit. We've put billions of dollars into savings. We have funded a capital projects budget to the tune of $800 million. We've paid down debt. We've paid down tax credits that were due to the oil industry and banks that supported them. We've passed the reading bill. First time in the history of the state of Alaska that we've substantially looked at reading and are affecting the outcomes with regard to our kids. We had the first sustainable energy conference here in the state of Alaska. You're going to hear a lot of talk in these debates, but we had the first sustainable energy conference in the state of Alaska that had a number of folks, close to 800 folks, that were part of that, planning out the future of Alaska in renewables, in nukes, wind, solar, tidal, you name it. We're going to be prepared by putting together an office of broadband to receive the $2 billion and wire the state of Alaska. We're going to be the drone capital of the world because we funded that at the University of Alaska. And imagine a state like Alaska in which you don't have to continually talk about taxes because once again, in some states, the 1960s discussion, once again, you have the resources and the science to crack those resources and the technology to crack make sure that those resources are delivered to markets. We have that here in Alaska. We have tremendous opportunity, as we mentioned, in our carbon credits and carbon sequestration to help fund Alaska's programs as well. But imagine Alaska that's prepared for every opportunity.
Time's up. Please wrap up. Go ahead.
All I would say is this. You look at the records, and I would match my record against anyone on the stage here, especially when you look at what we dealt with in the pandemic, negative $3 barrel oil, and all the other issues that ensued during that my administration over the past 4 years. Alaska is in better shape today, and this is a fact, than it was when it was handed off to me.
Thank you. Go ahead, Representative Guerra.
Look, I believe in opportunity for all, right? I believe in an economy and an education system that makes sure people have a chance in this world. That's how I grew up. That's how most people grew up in the state. You've all suffered your own hardship. You all deserve the right to a good school. You all deserve the right to a good job. But you know what? You know what's not going to create an economy? When you have a governor who tells women, you're not welcome here because we're going to take away your right to choose. I'm sorry, but that's an issue. Women are not going to stay here if they believe they're being treated hostilely. I will respect a woman's right to choose. It is not my business. That is government overreach at its worst. I will not chase away people who are gay or LGBTQ just because I believe that you get to marry who you want to marry. I believe you get to be who you want to be. So what are you going to do? Chase away people that some people want to discriminate against? Chase away people whose rights you want to take away? What kind of economy are you going to have left? We're going to be Mississippi. So look, I believe in those things vastly because those are my beliefs, but you will not have an economy when you chase people away like that. If that is your promise that you're going to take away somebody's rights, half of the population's rights, that is not going to work. Look, I believe that fish matter. The governor and I disagree on the Pebble Mine. 70% of Alaskans disagree with the Pebble Mine. It is a toxic danger to the future. We need to make sure we have fisheries that are vibrant for the next generation. I believe that commercial fishing is important. I would have never tried to close the federal waters to Cook Inlet as this governor did this year. Never do that. We have to make sure the fishing industry is vibrant for our sport fishermen, our subsistence fishermen, and our commercial fishermen. Those things matter to me. And I am just done with turning Alaskans against each other as we've seen these last 4 years, where you either get a dividend or you get education, or you get a university, or you get a marine highway, or you get a construction budget that puts people to work. We should have all of those things so we have a bright future for the people of the state of Alaska. And when Russia withdraws from Ukraine, we will have no money again, and this governor will be back to cutting $250 million from education and decimating the university. What kind of future do you want?
Governor Walker, 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Sarah, for your good job up here. I'm a little bit, I've watched this tug of war back and forth on initiatives on oil tax issues. I'm not sure when it became us and them. I remember in 1969 when the first well was discovered, it was us. Now it's become us and them. I think we need to become aligned again. I think that's going to take, the governor's going to sit down with them, with the people of Alaska, and find a way that we can put this behind us and be completely aligned on our resource development. We need a governor that'll meet with any president anywhere, anytime. As I said before, I did that. You can make more progress in 10 minutes in the Oval Office than you can in 10 years in a lawsuit. And I believe that, and I would do that again. And I don't care who the president, whoever she or he may be, I will meet with the president of the United States. I met with the president of Korea. I met with the president of Japan. I'm the prime minister of Japan, the president of China, Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada, our trade partners. We have trade partners around the world. You've got to be willing to sit down and discuss our opportunities at the highest level. And it's about relationships. There are no drive-up windows for relationships. You have to earn every relationship there is. You know, Governor Dunleavy says we're better off today than we were 4 years ago. Really? 1,100 teachers short. Some schools are having a hard time even opening their schools. Schools are rationing bus rides for students. We're 49th and 50th in the nation in our economy. 49th and 50th, only above Mississippi. That's better than we were 4 years ago? I don't think so. You know, high dividends, promising high dividends, everyone, $6,700 I think is his highest bid he threw out there. That's high taxes for everybody in this room. That's high taxes for every industry in this room. You want some instability, you know, have that. You can't have it both ways. You can't promise a $6,700 dividend at the same time and say there'll not be any taxes. It doesn't work that way.
All right, we made it, everybody. Please join me in thanking our candidates. And with that, I will so gladly relinquish this microphone to Kara Moriarty.